Hello and welcome to the Route 1 show. I'm Stephen Brown and we're looking at everything to do with Halifax Town. And I'm delighted to say joining us as ever is Tom Scargill from the Halifax Courier. Tom, how you doing, mate?
Yes, good mate, you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. So we're going to start with that FA Trophy victory that now sees Halifax through to the semi-final. And it was a 2-0 win over Aldershot. What did you make of it?
I thought they deserved it. In the end, first half, I thought they were really good. And Millington had said before the game that they were a different team to the one that lost 5-1 there in September. And I think they showed that. Hit the bar, hit the post, as well as the goal. Second half, Aldershot were a lot better because they'd really kind of not played at all, really not got going at all first half. And Town were under a fair bit of pressure, but they withstood it well and then sealed it later on with a late second goal. So one of the high points of the season, really, especially the fact that they lost so badly there earlier in the season. It was nice for them to go back there and kind of put that right. And it's just nice for the fans and the club to have this excitement of being so close to Wembley now, because the league campaign really hasn't offered anything to get excited about.
What do you get a sense is amongst the fan base at the moment with the season and obviously this cup run as well? Is it I guess it's tempered the kind of dissatisfaction with the league campaign, but where do you think the fans think about this season so far?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the fact that they've turned a little bit of a corner last 4 games, the fact they're in the semi-finals of the trophy, I think you're going to get a range of opinions with any supporter base, and there's going to be a spectrum where some fans are more to one side in being a bit more patient and forgiving. Some are kind of in the middle, and some are at the other end of the spectrum where they've lost faith and it's not really going to be restored. But I think certainly being in the semi-finals of the trophy has maybe taken a bit of the heat off the players and the manager. If it wasn't for that, then they're kind of languishing really in 16th place in a bit of no man's land in the league. And I think that would the heat would be turned up a bit more if it wasn't for the FA Trophy run. It's just been such an up and down season. Started off terrible, turned it round, and were really good. Then we're really bad again, and now hopefully they're starting to come into a bit of good form again. So really, I think they need to maintain that until the end of the season. They've turned a bit of a corner, and they can't really afford to let it slip again. They need to maintain how they're playing now until the end of the season, and then hopefully get past Altrincham. And I think that would probably be enough to kind of assuage not all the fan base, but probably if the majority, I would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we kind of get into that next cup match as well, Millie Ali impressed again. I mean, we mentioned him last week, but just continuing to put in good performances at the minute.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he's just different to what you get from most of the other Town players, and most of the players at that level. He's just got that spark and that little sprinkle of stardust about him, really, at his best. His feet are brilliant. It's just game after game now where it's really bamboozling whoever is playing up against him. Whereas earlier in the season, he wasn't really playing very regularly, or when he was, it'd be kind of a good 45 minutes or an hour, and then either the second half or the next game, he'd kind of be on the periphery, and then he'd be out of the team again. But he really seems to have nailed a more consistent output, and he just brings something different to the team in that final third. He can beat defenders. He can get the team up the pitch by taking players on, and he's getting a bit more of an end product now. He's got a good shot on him when he gets within range of goal, and if he can continue this form until the end of the season like the team, then I think I'm not sure if the club have an option. I think they do to extend it, but I think there'll be a few clubs higher up sitting up and taking notice.
Yeah, absolutely. And someone else, another goal scorer from the day as well, Gilmore, who we've mentioned as well as impressed in recent weeks, and you've been having a chat with him as well for the Courier, and it's just gone from from kind of a slow start, but it's kind of really increased his confidence throughout the season, hasn't it? And we're getting some really good performances from him too.
Yeah, I think he's really flourished this season in central midfield. He played that role when he was a kid at Sheffield United, came in under Pete Wild last summer and played as a winger and did all right. But I think he's you can tell that he's kind of played central midfield. He's got experience of playing that role. And I think he really enjoys it. He's not always been universally popular with the fan base. Maybe suggestions that he doesn't really pick the forward pass enough or isn't forward looking enough or can't play a killer pass like a Luke Summerfield might be able to. But I think he's brought a lot to the team this season in central midfield. And I think some of the criticism has been harsh because I think he's got good awareness. You can't fault his work rate for the team. He gives it absolutely everything every game. And I can see him getting better if the club can tie him down for next season. I think he's only 24. And I think he's still got some improvement in his game to come.
Yeah, what's he like off the field then? Does he seem like quite a level-headed fella then?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he was talking about how he's. I was kind of asking him what he feels has improved on most in his time at the club, and he was saying leadership, and I would agree with that. I've noticed in games that he's talking a lot more. I mean, it's a young team, and he's one of the oldest in it in the last 3 or 4 games, and he's 24. So I think he's kind of noticed that, and he's taken it on himself to have that responsibility and be okay. I'm one of the people who needs to step up here and guide some of the younger players, which also comes with the territory of playing in central midfield. But when I've been to training, he's always. So yeah, I think it's fair play to him that he's got his head down. He's tried to develop his game, and for me, I think he deserves credit for. I think he's got better as the season has gone on, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, FA Trophy semi-final. It's the 1st of April. It's away against Altrincham. What do you make of how that's going to go? Because obviously there's only a few places in the league that separates them. I guess it being away, it does make it a little bit trickier. How do you feel going into that one?
Yeah, I think everyone at the club is desperate for a home draw. It's just crazy, really, how many times they've been drawn away now. I think it's something like 11 of the last 13 or 14 cup draws have all been away from home, which is just absolutely ridiculous. Not the ideal draw because I think there's a lot to be said for Altrincham as a club and as a team. I think Phil Parkinson is a really good manager, and they deserve a lot of credit for having lost Colclough, having lost Con Clark, having lost Malarkey as well to Rochdale, their main centre back. So they've kind of lost the span of their team since the turn of the year, but the results don't seem to have been affected. I think I think Town will fancy the chances because there wasn't a massive amount between the two teams in the 2 games early this season. But I think Altrincham will quite fancy the chances as well. Yeah, I think for me it just depends on what Halifax team turn up on the day. I think you probably know what Altrincham team are going to turn up. I think their performances are fairly consistent looking at them from a distance. But for me, the biggest possible, the biggest variable is Halifax, and are they going to be the meek and mild Halifax when they've been at the worst this season, passive, not really imposing themselves on the game, or are they going to be the more tenacious, aggressive Halifax who really turn up and show how much they want it? For me, they have to be the second of those two, and if they are, then I think it's going to be difficult to pick a winner.
Yeah, absolutely. And might be a little bit of history on Halifax's Town with Phil Parkinson in charge there, who was in charge of Nantwich back in 2016, who Halifax beat. So maybe history favouring Halifax. Hopefully, lightning can strike twice again there.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, even in that game, Nantwich were really difficult to get past. I mean, Halifax won the first leg 4-2, but then Nantwich scored first in the second leg, and it was a lot nervier than it should have been, really, that second leg. And I think, yeah, Parkinson is definitely one who I could see managing in the Football League in the not too distant future. I think his name was in the reckoning for Notts County, I think it was, earlier this season. So I think other clubs have noticed the job he's done there, and he's overseen a transition from part-time to full-time, a bit like Pete Wild did at Halifax. So, I mean, they're going to be desperate. I don't think they've been to Wembley or certainly been to the FA Trophy final in their history. Altrincham, they feel like a club on the up at the moment, so they're going to be absolutely desperate to get through. Being the home side, they'll want as many fans there as possible. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough ask for Halifax, and they're really going to have to give it everything on the day because you can bet your bottom dollar Altrincham will be giving it everything they've got.
Not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but Gateshead or Barnet potentially in the final. Any preference out of those two?
I would say Gateshead. I was impressed with Barnet when they won at the Shea 3-1. It was difficult to draw too many conclusions on the opening day, but Kabamba is really good up front, strong, powerful number 9. They've got some good player. Brennan has done another one who's done a really good job there. Recruitment's been very good. They've lost a couple of players as well to bigger clubs, but they've got a really good kind of all for one kind of spirit, and they seem to be a bit like Altrincham. Kind of the team is bigger than the sum of its parts. Gateshead over the 2 games, glimpses, but other than that, I thought Halifax deserved to win at the Shea and probably deserved to win at Gateshead recently. So I would fancy Halifax against Gateshead more than I would against Barnet. I think Barnet, fair play to them, they're having a fantastic season, a bit like Halifax did under Pete Wild last season. It seems like it's Barnet's turn this year to have a really good go at it. Whether they've got enough to go up, possibly not, but fair play to them. I think Brennan is kind of getting every little bit out of that group of players at the moment, and they might feel like a Wembley appearance and winning the FA Trophy is something tangible that they can get for what's been a really good season for them.
Absolutely. Moving away from the FA Trophy then, in Chris Millington this week, he has been saying that the process has begun of Town trying to retain some of their key players who are out of contract in the summer. I guess what they really want to do, they want to avoid the kind of situation that happened last year. Would that be fair to say?
100%. Yeah, I mean, Millington identified that right back last summer, kind of in the aftermath of that happening, where he was kind of almost walking through the debris of the team being ripped apart, really, the heart being ripped out of the team, with Bradbury, Marr, Green, Waters, Warren, 5 absolute key players really in that playoff team, all leaving for the EFL. I think maybe having a situation that is not quite comparable to that, but has echoes of it, is unavoidable. If you think of the likes of Kean Spence and Jesse Deborah, both out of contract, and if you ask me, I think they're kind of looking a bit destined for the EFL. Both on their day, absolute quality players at this level. Got a lot of talent in their specific positions, and I would doubt whether Halifax could hang on to them. Whether there'd be others who are also attracting interest from the EFL, quite possibly. But Halifax need to kind of get that work done as soon as possible. It's already kind of mid-March now, so time is already running out. So it's good that work is underway to try and tie down some players, because there has to be that consistency. There was under Pete Wild for the 3 seasons he was there. In between those 3 seasons, there was a good deal of consistency, and that he was able to build a fairly cohesive squad. And if and when players were picked off, there was a bit of a conveyor belt where, okay, that's fine, we can absorb that because we've got someone else coming along on the conveyor belt to replace them. Whereas last summer, it just felt like, as I say, kind of the heart was ripped out of the team. So I think that's probably a contributing factor to the fact that Halifax have been off the pace more this season. So it was something that Millington identified straight away coming in, that he didn't want to repeat. So now is an absolutely key time to ensure it doesn't happen again.
Just something else that caught the eye this week, as well as also a fundraising appeal for former Town winger Connor Hughes as well, who suffered an injury. What's the story with that? What's happened in that situation there, Tom?
Yeah, he joined Witton, and I think he scored something like 11 goals in 13 games, and then he suffered a really serious injury. It was misdiagnosed. He's had an operation, which has the cost of which has been in part covered by the PFA. But it's something I've seen a few times over the last few months, where semi-pro players, they've got lives outside of football, they've got day jobs, and when a situation like that occurs, it happened with a Harrow Borough player as well. He got a serious injury against Halifax in the FA Trophy and needed an operation. And then there was a fundraising campaign set up for him for the cost of the medical bills, and it's the same with Connor. And I think it's just a reminder that, football at non-league level is just a world away from the elite level, where if a player gets a serious injury, it has a massive impact on their day-to-day lives. And Connor isn't in a situation where he can work at the moment because of the recuperation, so he's got no income coming in. So this appeal has been set up in his name, and hopefully, by sharing it on the Courier website, I've helped to bring it to more people's attention, and it helps him get a few more quid towards his target. It's pretty kind of sobering, really, when you see these things. As I say, I think it's just a reminder that non-league is just a completely different world away from the elite level, where players are, they're not superstars, they're human beings, and they have lives away, and what happens on the pitch has a massive impact on their lives off the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tom says there's a link on the Courier there if you want to go and support Connor. Moving on then, back to the league. It's Yeovil Town up next. Yeovil all the way down there in 19th at the moment. Presents a really good opportunity, doesn't it, to get a win, especially with the midweek game being postponed and an extra few days rest as well.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. And the fact that I'm not there means that they're probably guaranteed to win about 8-0 with my absentee. Proved under Mark Cooper, including a win against Halifax early in the season. But the flip side is they've only won 1 in 10. So under the lowest scores in the league, second lowest scorers away from home in the league. So I think on paper, it presents a really good chance for Halifax to get what for me would be a big step towards safety if they can win. It'd put them 5 points away from the 50-point mark. It'd extend the distance between them and Yeovil, who are lower than them in the table. And if other results go their way, then it could just be a really positive day for them, for their hopes of steering away from a relegation tussle at the end of the season, and just a step away from that, and hopefully a step towards a more kind of serene, worry-free end to the season, really.
Absolutely. Fantastic stuff. Thank you, Tom. If you've enjoyed the video, please do smash us a like on the video. Also subscribe to the channel for more content on Halifax Town and our other teams across West Yorkshire. I've been Stephen Brown. Tom, thank you very much for joining us, mate, and we'll speak to you again soon.
No worries, mate. Cheers.